In the interest of time, and it is 6 o'clock, I'm going to be calling the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the February 28th, 2023, 6 o'clock meeting to order. And I'll ask Brandy if she'll denote roll call, which I know she will. Rachel has it. Thank you, Rachel. Pledge of Allegiance. Doug, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with justice.
Thank you, Doug. And I will note that Lisa did inform me that she wasn't coming tonight. I don't know about Jean. You did hear from Jean? Okay. We'll watch and see if she shows up. Approval of the minutes, I did not see any in the packet, so I'll move on to appearances before the commission. Is there anybody wishing to appear on items that are not on the agenda? We have a few public hearings tonight for a couple of rezonings and also a hearing to talk about the comprehensive plan. Okay. Not seeing anybody, I'll move on to the action items. Item number 5.1 is presentation and discussion.
I'd like to make a motion to move the agenda to item 5.15, public hearing to gather input on the proposed updates to the village comprehensive plan and official map.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Shannon. So we will move on to item 5.15. Public hearing to gather public input on proposed updates to the Village of DeForest comprehensive plan and official map. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Brandy, you got one? Thank you. Don, do you wish to come forward? And as you are aware, push your button on your mic.
Dawn Clemens, 309 Mohawk Trail. The comp plan is big, 119 pages. I've read it quite a few times and I can see where you all have worked very hard on it. I did have a couple of comments and questions. What concerns me the most is the density of the housing that's mentioned so many times in here. Most people chose to live here because of a small community atmosphere. And my fear is that if we continue to grow by making houses, apartments, duplexes, twin homes, that's a lot more growth than a small community atmosphere. On the survey, question number 4, it asked about residential growth. And 38% of the people who answered the survey said slow growth. 24% neither grow or increase. So in other words, stay the same. And only 27% said to grow. So that's 62% of the people that answered that survey that really want to either slow us down or keep us as we are. And I was wondering if the Planning and Zoning Committee would maybe take that into account when they're talking about the housing density. And affordable housing is mentioned quite often too. And Realtor.com ranked DeForest number 2 in the country for first-time home buyers in 2023. So I think that says a lot for our community, number 1, because we have a great community. And then number 2, that people are able to come and move and live here. the housing that we answered the questions for, what type of housing should the village promote? Most of it was single-family housing. The fifth one on the list was apartments with average rents. Otherwise, the housing was between 300 and 500,000. The average price of the home in DeForest right now is 359,000. And I think that's why we're number 2, because people can afford to move in here and live here and live the good life that we have here. There's talking about density by making narrower streets. Now, I took some time today and drove around Sun Prairie that has a lot of dense housing over off of their main street there by Costco and all of that. And their streets are so narrow that it's only one-way traffic a lot of places. And when people have to park cars, there's just not, I don't feel enough room. So I was hoping that maybe when you do the zoning and whatever you might take into consideration about those narrowing of the streets, to me, it could be a hazard for fire department to come. Are they going to be wide enough for a fire truck or 3 fire trucks or EMS? I just want to make sure that it would be safe. And the narrow streets just make it, I felt like I was crowded just driving through the streets. So that was just a comment I had. Our residential growth, when the comp plan was done before, I think it was in 2012. We, at that time, wanted 39% of the people wanted it to increase, and now 27%. So I think we've reached a part where people are happy with what we have, don't want us to expand too much too fast. And again, the density, I read some of the comments that were put out when I was at one of the meetings. Trustee Landgraf had mentioned that there were comments, and so I asked him if he would direct me to where they were. And a lot of the comments about the housing was, and there were 190, I think. Most of those were that people were afraid of crime. Crime seems to be a big issue with people with dense housing and affordable housing. I never quite understood what exactly affordable housing was here for DeForest, with our median income being 88,000. I'm just wondering if we need to make our housing less nice or cheaper. I wasn't really sure. I know at one time it was mentioned that our teachers couldn't live here, our police couldn't live here, etc. Well, I looked on the DPI for teachers, and their average salary is approximately $60,000 a year. I checked with a friend that I have at the high school, and the majority of the teachers are married or in some sort of relationship. So I feel most people live together. So if you're talking two incomes, I would think that they could afford to rent in DeForest already. The police department in 2021, their starting pay was $30.36 an hour, up to $38.88, which is $63,000 to $83,000 a year, which I don't feel is underpaid or that that they can't afford to live here. The fire and the EMS, we are not paying them enough. As a village, I went out to Indeed.com and compared places around us, and we're significantly under. They're significantly underpaid. One other thing, I'll be quick. I bet I've used my 3 minutes up already. Oh, another thing I noticed too is I think we need to ask our new businesses to pay their employees better. If we're going to encourage these businesses, like Buc-ee's was here at the last meeting I was at, and he mentioned $17 to $19 an hour. Well, that's wonderful. But all the businesses along, the Burger Kings and all of that are not paying these people a living wage. And I'm wondering if there's any way that when you do your planning and zoning and talk to some of these people, if there's a way to encourage them to pay their employees a living wage, a wage that they could afford to live here, because it's such a wonderful community and we'd like to keep as many people here. And I've talked too much and I appreciate the time and thank you, Jim, for letting me talk longer.
Thank you. I guess Dawn, I was writing notes and I'm sure
Oh.
Mark was writing notes too and everybody else, and we'll definitely take those into advisement. Don't
And
forget to
you
the
guys did a wonderful job.
Comments.
A wonderful job and it's hard. But I just had some concerns and I don't want anybody to feel bad that I was criticizing them at all.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else wishing to speak during this public hearing?
I don't know if there's anybody on Zoom that would like to speak, so.
Yeah, if there is anybody on Zoom, I see there's a number of people. There is me with a hand up, I think, or if that's actually in your.
Oh, that's the
Okay,
mouse,
sorry.
sorry.
Okay, I think I've paused enough and we will close the public hearing at 6:12. And I apologize, I did not note the time when I started. I'm assuming it's maybe 6:05 or something like that. 6:04, thank you. And without a motion, I will move back to our regular agenda order and to item 5.1. A presentation and discussion of a concept plan for a potential retail and fueling center, Buc-ee's, located north of County Highway V, east of County Highway I, and west of the Interstate 399094. Parcels denoted on the agenda. And Brandy or Mark, did you want to open it or are we going straight to the applicant?
I will be very brief. I will reiterate that you're looking at a concept plan for a significant proposal at the County Highway V interstate interchange in the northwest quadrant of that interchange. The commission's not being asked to take action tonight. You are welcome to provide comments and direction as they move forward to the next stages of the process in the coming months. That will include seeking annexation, which is already in process with the village board. That does not come to the Planning and Zoning Commission. It also includes a conditional use permit, given the scale of the use, site plan approval, and some other secondary approvals that they will be seeking over the next few months. That's just at the local level. They will also be needing to talk to the state, both the Department of Transportation significantly and the Department of Natural Resources regarding access to the property in particular. So with that, I would turn it over to the representatives from Buc-ee's to present their concept and then to you to provide any questions or comments you have.
Thank you. Alex, did you have something? So thank you, Mark. And if there's a representative of Buc-ee's, if you wish to give a presentation or a talk.
Yeah, so Stan Beard is here. Come on up. Brandy, can you pull up the PowerPoint?
Stan, would you mind saying your name and address for the record?
Sure. My name's Stan Beard, Director of Real Estate for Buc-ee's. And my address is 327 FM 2004, Lake Jackson, Texas. You should come visit us.
So Stan came before and last week at the village board to sort of walk through a little bit of a concept presentation here. I believe you all have some of those materials in your packet. But Stan, do you think you can man the mouse again this time and go through the?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, sure, man.
I'll pass it on to you.
Stan, do you want to do the video first or do you want to go through your stuff first?
I actually, so let me ask you this, of the folks up here, has anyone been to Buc-ee's? Okay. I was here last week. We talked about it with the council. And so I think what the video probably at this point is the best description. The reason being, Bucky's is a odd bird. We're a big travel center. We're not a convenience store. We're not a truck stop. We are not a truck stop. We don't allow trucks. It's positively signed all over that the tractor trailers are not allowed. And the trucking industry understands that. So we are not a truck stop. We are a family travel center that based out of Texas. We've kind of just gotten bigger footprint wise as we've grown into, you know, a fairly unique brand. It was only 6 or 7 years ago when we built our first store outside of Texas. And so since then we have stores in Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, Tennessee. I know there's others working on Mississippi, Georgia, working on Colorado. You guys would be the furthest north by far. But we hope to expand kind of everywhere. And the theory of us is that we're a destination. We're a destination on your way to a destination. So we try to put ourselves in between a road trip. So we often find ourselves around, you know, bigger metropolitan areas, but on the way to the Dells, for instance, or college. A lot of times we've got a big university around us. We're a place you can go on a, you know, you could wake up Friday and say, hey, I want to go to I want to go rent a cabin somewhere. And you could literally go to a Buc-ee's on the way to that cabin and pick up everything you needed for that weekend. Really good food, unique, you know, I say odd and weird. My bosses can't stand that when I say that, but we're odd. And that's why we're so kind of popular. We've kind of got a weirdness to us that is kind of cool. And I've noticed that, and we have like a general store feeling too. So we have some convenience store and then a bunch of general store type feeling, a lot of fresh food. All of our food is made in-house. You'll see on the video, the good stuff, what we're known for is our brisket barbecue, Texas barbecue. It's pretty good. And so we are a different breed from almost anything on the highway. We're the cleanest restrooms you will ever walk into in any public arena. There is no other cleaner restroom than a Buc-ee's restroom. And I don't care if it's store number 1 in Lake Jackson that was built 40 years ago and is 2,000 square feet, or store number 62 that's going to be 74,000 square feet and have 71 bathrooms. Clean as a whistle. And that's why a lot of folks like to come to a Buc-ee's, because they know that what they're getting when they stop at a Buc-ee's. Most of our customers come from a long way away. We're not a local, I mean, obviously local folks enjoy us and we like to have them around, but our customer base is coming from 100, 150, 200 miles away or more. They know they're going to go to a Buc-ee's before they ever get in their car. It's not like, oh, I want to, I want a Diet Coke and a can of Copenhagen. I'm going to run in here real quick. It's just not our thing. Other people do that very well. So that's kind of a long-winded explanation. I'm going to give you a short-winded video just to kind of put things into context. So that building right there is very similar in layout. Those 2 fuel canopies will be similar in the layout that we have proposed here. That building right there is 53,000 square feet. And, everybody says that's big. Well, the one we're building now, the bigger store, And the one we're proposing for here is 74,000 square feet. And it's just it's just bigger. It's just, uh, not as crowded. On weekends, we can get pretty crazy. And so we kind of spread everything as we, people who know. So anyway, roll tape, Brandy, please. Excuse the music. So like I say, they're clean, they're well-built, brick, mortar. I mean, it's the real deal. That's our fresh barbecue. It's getting cut or pulled or chopped all day long. Breakfast type foods, breakfast burritos, all made right there. We will employ, 200 or so people. And we pride ourselves on how we pay our people. And the reason that they are so well paid is because they are the reason that we are so well liked. When you walk into a Buc-ee's, you will hear, "Hey, good morning, welcome to Buc-ee's." You'll go into the restroom that was cleaned by somebody. I mean, it's a hard job, but it's a great way to make a living for folks who are often, underappreciated or overlooked, but we're kind of a low barrier to entry employer. As long as you're, friendly and want to work hard, we're more than willing to invest in you. Like cow hides. I mean, come on, who sees that every day? A lot of Buc-ee's branded stuff. A lot of folks, kids have Buc-ee's pajamas, Buc-ee's everything. But we also have the typical, coffees and things like that. It's just in our, humble opinion, it's just all better and cleaner. That's actually a closed store for the most part, so that's why no one's in there. But I don't know. It's just an interesting thing, and we love DeForest for this. The reason we chose DeForest is, for one, we're on a freeway. We're on a, traffic counts matter to us. And we have data, and we there's some sticking our finger in the air, but we know that folks this is kind of a confluence of a couple of freeways, and folks are going from Chicago to Minneapolis. I mean, there's just a trip. There's a trip involved, and DeForest happens to be kind of in the middle of what we see as the trip. And so we often end up in communities like DeForest. And we love being here. That's kind of the fun part for me is getting to know the smaller communities that we rely on. And we're even like annexed. I mean, this is a big deal for kind of all of us. And so that's it. I'll shut up. I'll answer your questions. And I don't know, right?
Yeah, so they've received the staff analysis and they have some
Okay.
materials in there, so we can certainly open up for questions.
Any questions from board members, commissioners?
Yes, sir.
Where's the closest location to us now?
I think you would say that it was Richmond, Kentucky. Soon to be Richmond, Kentucky. Tell you what, if you ever want to see one and you really need to see it, the easiest thing to do would be to, like if you're ever around Atlanta, we have stores north and south of Atlanta that are great to visit. We have a store in South Carolina, Florence, South Carolina. We have, if you go to Disney anytime soon, we have a store over there close by Daytona Beach. But like I say, you're a good, we're building a store in Springfield, Missouri right now, which will be the closest, but we're not open there yet.
I just Googled Bucky's near me. It's Richmond. Yeah.
I guessed right. Nice. Oh, that's pathetic. We gotta fix that.
Good, Scott.
Yeah, it's like 48 minutes. Yeah. And we think that with this larger store, it will even be longer because people will feel less rushed. It's also why I'll throw this plug in for Tesla. All of our new stores, and by the time we build this, we will actually, so Tesla has committed for the most part to all of our travel centers. They have put in or will put in at least a dozen charging stations. Some of our locations have, I think 40 is the highest number. We also soon will have another national company that will announce that they are putting the other, there's Tesla and then there's the Universal. This other company will be putting in the universal chargers at our stores also. So we're made for the, plug in your car and go shop for 45 minutes. This one yes. Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Brian.
Not necessarily a question, but one thing I wanted to bring up to the commission, something that you mentioned during the village board meeting is that once they get going up here, that you'll be reaching out to local arts and crafts and I believe some type of food service, if like, if they make certain type of meat or something like that, and seeing if they want to join the Bucky team and be selling their goods at Bucky's.
Yeah, so we will, each Bucky's is, even though, it's a fairly standard footprint, and when you walk in the store, you know exactly where everything's gonna be, what is there, the merchandising is always different depending on, what college you're near. So there'll be some, Badger gear, and then what type of recreation there is. So if it's fishing or camping or whatever, or beach or whatever, that store will lean towards that. What we also do is 6 to 9 months before we open a store, our local merchandising team comes through and roots around after having gone online and all, but they'll know who the best, who cans the best honey, who makes candles locally that's really cool, or a lotion or some stuff that we can put in our stores and sell that is a locally based deal. And food items are harder. Fresh food items are impossible just because of the logistics behind it all. But I was with the boss today, as a matter of fact, eating cheese curds. And so we're already, figuring out how to get cheese curds into our system.
Another comment that I remember hearing, and I asked you, you said how this store is 74,000 you're proposing. And the way I remember you talking about it, that this is actually larger than any store that is currently out there. Is that correct?
The 74,000 square foot store will, when we open the first 74,000 square foot store in Sevierville, Tennessee in the summer, that will be the biggest one we've built. And it will be the first of this model, which this will be. And then we're building one in Luling, Texas, which is our original flagship town. And that's going to be 75,000 square feet. And then we're gonna be done with the how big a Bucky's do we have story. But you will be the first in Wisconsin, that's for sure.
Thank you.
Hmm?
Any other questions or comments? I thank you and I look forward to working with you.
Great, thanks, I appreciate y'all.
Thank you. So item 5.2, recommendation for acquisition of easements for sanitary sewer extension to serve recently annexed lands. Is that gonna be Brandy or Mark? Judd?
Hey, all. So you should have had in your packet information about us extending sewer and needing to get easements to get across from where we currently are, which is just slightly west of River Road, and then run across underneath the interstate. And so in the packet, we had easements from three of the landowners, Trinan, Evco, and then Lindy. This will serve those newly annexed lands into the Village of DeForest. There's a fair number of those annexations that have come forward. And so that's what this will serve. Just looking for direction from y'all, and I think it's an approval, correct? Recommendation to the board for approving that acquisition of lands.
Yeah, it's a recommendation, Judd, under statutes. Anytime the village considers acquiring an interest in land, it has to go to the Planning and Zoning Commission first.
Thank you. Is there questions of commissioners? Brandy, I'm wondering if you could pull up the, I say it wasn't a resolution, but the comments. Has anybody got it up on screen or wanna make a motion?
Sorry. Jim, I'll make a motion to make a recommendation to the board for approval of the easements.
A motion by Brian, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Scott. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Item 5.3, discussion and recommendation on the proposed vacation of a portion of public alleyway and acceptance of an access easement located in the block between Washington Street, Columbia Avenue, Cleveland Avenue, and Holm Street, the former Holm Education Center in the Village of DeForest. Mark or Randy, or is that Judd again?
Oh, that's me. I think these easements are why we got media and other people here. Some exciting stuff. In any case, this is the Holm Center site, located in the center part of the village. As you know, having been involved in the planning for this area, this site is excess property for the DeForest Area School District. And they're preparing the site probably for a request for proposals for potential sale. To prepare the site for that, we are collaborating with them to release a section of an unimproved alley that in fact goes right through the Holm Center. Not supposed to do it that way. It's the area in red that's on your screen right now. Once that alleyway is released, and even before that, there's a need to outlet vehicles, plow trucks, service vehicles that will continue to serve the 3 or 4 residences that are on the east end of the block. So the alley portion in purple will remain to serve those. But to get out at least temporarily before redevelopment of the site, the village is seeking and the school district is willing to grant an easement in the area in green that will allow vehicles to loop in and out of the property in this interim period before it's redeveloped. We are, similar to the last proposal, asking the commission to recommend board approval of the vacation or discontinuance of the alley section in red and the acceptance of an easement for continued access and looping that you see in green. And the recommendation is here on the bottom of the page, and I'm happy to answer any questions about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Is there any questions? Seeing none, I'd be seeking a motion.
Jim, I'll make a motion. I'll make a motion to recommend the proposed vacating of the public alleyway as presented in red, and the acceptance of the access easement as presented in green.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Doug. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 5.4, discussion and action on a site plan for an approximately 163,600 square foot office warehouse distribution building at 4189 Bear Tree Parkway, parcel denoted on the agenda, with associated green space extending into 6847 Peterson Crossing Boulevard, parcel denoted on the agenda in the Village of DeForest. Mark or Brandy?
That would be me. All right, so this plan has come before the Planning and Zoning Commission as concept in the past. And now the site plan has been submitted for recommendation. It is for 163,000 square foot office warehouse and distribution center with an outdoor trailer storage component to it. It's located on Bear Tree Parkway, just east of Highway 51. And we'll say west of Peterson Crossing. Mark's pulling up the map here real quick so you can get a visual of the location. So that area right there is where the proposal is for. It's right across from the Hooper Fleet Vehicle Service Center, and then also the Miller, Bradford, and Reason. MBR, that's what I always call it, so I always struggle with the. Yeah, Bear Tree Parkway, there you go. And at the January 24th P and Z meeting, the commission did recommend approval for a rezone and a conditional use permit for the use on this site. The rezone was the M2 Industrial District. There was a letter of intent that was included with the conditional use permit, which we also supplied as an exhibit with the approved resolution in this area. Through the staff review and consultant review, we did go through and do the full analysis on the site plan. And I have to say that the Dickmans and their team have been fantastic about working with us to make sure that this is a product that they will be proud of, but then also the village will be proud of as well. They've made a lot of changes as we've gone through. There are a lot of conditions listed for approval, and the only real reason for that is that we had provided some comments, and the team just couldn't get it all together to get us an updated site plan before the packet had to go out. But they were in agreement with the comments that we made regarding landscaping and then some other technical items in the site plan. So I'm gonna leave it at that because the staff report was pretty lengthy and in detail, but if you have questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them, or if you want me to expand on anything, I can certainly do that as well. Oh, I should say that staff is recommending approval of the resolution or the approval of the site plan.
You open it up for questions or comments from the commissioners. Okay, I don't, okay, go ahead, Brent.
So are we approving the site plan and the conditional use?
No, the conditional use was already approved at the
Right, that's what I
January
thought, okay.
meeting. Yeah, so it would just be
Just the site
approval of
plan.
the site plan with the conditions as listed in the staff report.
Okay, thanks for clarification.
Anything else, Brian? Okay, thank you. I do have one question. There was some comments about modifications to the parking, and I believe it's the parking on the west side. Do we want to mention that, or how is that taken care of?
The parking plan. No. There were some modifications. Some of it had to do with, the grading of the site, the restructuring of a retaining wall. The original, plans that they had worked through, the retaining wall was gonna be 20-some feet high, which they were the ones that said it just really wasn't gonna look that great for their site. So they restructured the retaining wall area and the landscape plan, which adjusted grading on the site and the grading for the parking area. But it's all been adjusted appropriately to go along with that retaining wall design. That design.
So just to ground you a little bit, this is the west edge of the site. And the plans, most of the plans in your packet show several parking spaces in this area. And this is where the grading didn't really work without I think a 20-foot tall retaining wall to its west. So they have relocated those stalls to be part of the main parking rows in front of the building instead. And I think where's that? Oh. And so this is how it will look, so that this is the same western area, without the 20-foot retaining wall or parking to the west of the building.
Okay, and is that noted on our resolution and stuff? Brian?
It is part of the recommended conditions that, they amend all the plan set to reflect this new parking grading layout.
Okay. I guess we'd be seeking a motion.
Jim, I can make that motion. I'll make a motion to accept the site plan, as presented.
Okay, is there a second motion by Scott,
I'll second it.
seconded by Brian? Any
Thank-
further discussion?
Yeah, I think you need to include in that motion that you accept or you recommend or motion to approve the site plan with the conditions as listed.
Thank you, Brandy. I'll amend that to say, make the recommendation to approve the site plan, with the conditions listed in the packet.
You accept
As
that,
presented.
Brian?
Yeah, I'll accept that. Second.
Thank you. And I guess I want to bring up one point of discussion with the site plan. I am very comfortable with the Dickmans like you said, that they've been working with us, so I'm okay with it the way it's written, but I just wonder, one thing that enters my mind is with the revisions coming, we want to review it as like a minor site plan and give commissioners any opportunity to comment. Are you good with leaving it as is?
Well, I mean, if that's certainly something that you would like to do, we can do that. Typically, when we have the revisions like that, it's based on the analysis and the conditions, and it's typically done by me as the zoning administrator with review by the consultants as well. but certainly up to the commission.
Yeah, so that's, sounds like that's the way it's written, that Brandy would make the recommendation. Are you guys good with that? Okay, so that's the way the motion. is.
I'll just add that given this location, we brought it to P and Z for approval, but under the way the ordinance is written, unless they're not meeting a code requirement, the zoning administrator is typically authorized to approve a site plan like this. So, you know, we're glad to have brought it here. That made a lot of sense, but if you, are feeling concerned that, boy, should we give this to staff? My response is normally a proposal like this would be staff approval after a conditional use permit was granted by P and Z.
Very good point, and I do appreciate you brought it here because this is a very visible site and sort of a transition between residential and commercial. So, thank you. Any other comments or discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you and good luck. So item 5.5 is a public hearing on a petition for rezoning from the B2 General Business District to the M2 General Industrial District. So the 20.6 acres consisting of all of lots 29, 30, 31, 32, 37, 38, and part of lots 28, 33, 39, and 40 in the Northtown Corporate Park First Edition plat located between Northtown Road and Highway 51, north of Highway 19, Village of DeForest. That is the first public hearing that I will be opening. The second public hearing that I'll be opening at the same time is item 5.6, a public hearing on an application for a conditional use permit to allow a motor freight operations and truck terminals, transfer facilities, vehicle maintenance, cleaning and repair as a component of trucking operations, the land use on 20.6 acres consisting of lots 29, 30, 31, 32, 37, and 38, and parts of lots 28, 33, 39, 40 of the Northtown Corporate Park First Edition plat located between Northtown Road and Highway 51, north of 19, Highway 19, Village of DeForest. So both of those public hearings I will be opening up at 6:48. Is there anybody wishing to speak? Seeing none, I will close those
Jim?
two public hearings.
Jim,
Yes,
I'm sorry, we're just checking,
Yep.
the Zoom.
sorry.
Quick. It doesn't look like anyone is here for that public hearing.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I will be now closing those public hearings at 6:49. I think it took me longer to read those than actually have the hearing. And we are on to item 5.7, discussion and recommendation on a petition for rezoning from the B2 General Business District to the M2 General Industrial District for 20.6 acres consisting, can I just say, as I stated already before? Thank you. So discussion and recommendation. Is there anybody that wants to open discussion? Brandy or Mark, do you have a start or are we just opening up the commissioners?
I can go ahead and open up and start. It's, the next few items on the agenda are all for the, the same project. But we have to look at the steps in process. So the first step is rezoning the land to an industrial use. This was brought before you conceptually at last month's meeting for the potential FedEx facility. And so as far as the rezoning goes, it does permit this type of use or this type of building with the land use as depicted under the conditional use portion of the item to allow motor freight operations, which include truck terminals and transfer facilities and so on. I can answer any questions on the rezoning or.
Is there any questions or would you be looking for a recommendation?
And there is an ordinance that it was in the packet. Mark has it up on the screen here that lists the conditions for the rezoning. That was included in your packet as well. If you have any questions on any of those, I can certainly respond.
So can I ask for a point of clarification? What is so is that the section 2 that you're specifically noting?
Yes, that is correct. Because we have to do a certified survey map as part of the process to combine the lots.
If I could just add, so you're making a recommendation both to the board on the rezoning, and you will be making a recommendation on the certified survey map. This is a draft board approval ordinance that would cover both of them. So all we're asking for with this item number 5-7 is for you to recommend board approval of the rezoning, subject to the conditions you see under section 2 here.
Jim, I'll make a motion recommending village board approval of the proposed rezoning as well as per the conditions outlined in the packet.
In the packet under section 2.
Under section 2. Thank you, Jim.
Of the ordinance.
Of the ordinance. What would I do without you guys?
Period.
Period,
exclamation
exclamation.
point. Smiley face.
Thank you, Brian. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. So motion by Brian, seconded by Shannon. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I want to bring up my concern again is I highlighted different things throughout the packet, but I know there is to me, it's a very visible lot. And I'm personally concerned for the visibility of all the, say, square footage of concrete that's going to be visible from 51. And I'd like that to be addressed aesthetically. And I'm concerned that this current, what we've been presented so far hasn't done that to the level that I am comfortable with. And I particularly note the future expansion is going really rather close to, I'll say, the highway fence. And that is concerning to me when I drive that corridor, that much of the buildings are set back and have a nice splattering of trees and things. And that's what I'd prefer to see here. So that again is a concern of mine, and really that's about it. I'm concerned for the aesthetics and the transition in what we were hoping to have more of a business area, which I know is difficult at this moment.
Yeah, so just to address that really quickly, this item is for the rezoning of the lands. The next item is for the conditional use permit, which does address the aesthetic requirements, as well as enhanced landscaping and things like that for the site. Yeah.
Like we've done with other E2 to M2 rezonings here, we've included in these conditions that you've moved to support an expectation for aesthetic standards that would be similar to what they would be if the site developed in a commercial and not an industrial zoning district. And above and beyond that, we specifically included a condition 2B that called for significant buffering of the trailer parking area from 51. Now, how that, and I think that's important here and in the CUP, because it gives you some leverage when we get a site plan to determine whether what they submit is significant enough to meet your standard. And the other thing I will mention is with the CUP resolution that will be before you under the next item. What is approved for the conditional use permit is the base proposal and not the expansion. When and if they want to come forward and expand in a manner that you see here or some other manner, they would have to come based on our recommendation to amend the conditional use permit. So in our estimation, that provides, I guess, a bit of a trial period to evaluate whether the aesthetics, without the expansion area towards 51 is acceptable or suitable, dense enough landscaping. And then when and if they do come forward with an expansion proposal, we either say, thumbs up, you did enough landscaping, or no, in order to get this expanded CUP, we need to see more regarding aesthetics along the highway.
Thank you, Mark. That's all my comments. Is there any other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, I'd ask that everybody in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Register is opposed. Yeah. Motion passes 4-1. Thank you. So on to item 5.8. Discussion and action on a request for a conditional use permit to allow a motor freight operation, including truck terminals, transfer facility, vehicle maintenance, cleaning and repair as a component of trucking operations, land use on the 20.6 acres further denoted in the agenda. So we are again looking for discussion and action, and this is the CUP.
Yes, this is a discussion and action on a resolution for the conditional use permit to allow the motor freight operation, including trucking terminals, transfer facilities, vehicle maintenance, cleaning, repair, and component in the trucking operation to be used on this site. There was an analysis also in the packet on the conditional use permit. As Mark mentioned, we did include conditions to kind of address some of the concerns regarding the viewpoints and things like that. The conditions that are listed here do have to be in accordance with in item 2, all of the information that's listed there. So their letter of intent, outdoor storage, spill prevention control plan, which they did provide a preliminary plan with the application. And then also has to meet all performance standards and requesting that their lease agreements include the above referenced provisions for that. I can go deeper into the analysis if you'd like, or address any other questions that you might have regarding the conditional use. So this would be the land use for that site.
And a point of clarification, this is an action being done by this board. This is not a recommendation.
Correct. Did I say recommendation? I'm
I
sorry.
don't know.
Oh, okay.
I just.
Yeah, no, this is the
So
action
it's-
by the commission to approve the resolution for the conditional use permit.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Yes, Brian?
So are we approving a site plan, Brandy, or when we got to crack at the site plan yet?
Yeah, the site plan is not hasn't come before the commission at this point. It will come in the future, at a future meeting.
Okay, because I'd like to echo Jim's concerns about the aesthetics along 51. I think the Dickman's kind of the gold standard here, and they did such a fantastic job of screening. I'm hoping that we can work with the developer and Lizzie's on something like that along 51. I've seen a lot of these truck facilities along the interstate. And as Jim said, you know, it's nice when you drive up 51 and you see all the landscaping. Everything's, you know, that's the last thing I'd want to see. So if staff can work on that and concentrate on that, I would really appreciate it.
Absolutely. We do have a special meeting that's later in the agenda scheduled for March 13th. I think I had taken kind of a poll of who would be available for that, and it's anticipated that the site plan will be at that meeting unless things change in the next couple of days with the developer.
Okay. Further discussion or a motion?
Jim, I'll make a motion on resolution 2023-903. Approving the conditional use permit as presented from village staff.
Thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
I'll make a second, Jim.
So motion by Scott, seconded by Brian. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? I'll register as opposed again. So motion carries 4-1. Thank you. So item 5.9, discussion and recommendation on the proposed vacation of a segment of unapproved Meridian Drive right-of-way within the Northtown Corporate Park First Edition plat in the Village of DeForest. Any presentation or straightforward, Mark?
The Meridian Drive was platted 15 years ago as part of the Northtown Corporate Park First Edition. The intention at that time that it was going to extend further north. A lot has changed in the area, not just in the area of this proposed FedEx Center, but to the north. We are prepared to recommend that the village vacate a segment of Meridian Drive, an unimproved segment of Meridian Drive that would extend through the CUP area that you just approved conditionally, and for a small segment to its south. The end result, I'm going to bring up the certified survey map because that shows you what we'll be left with. The end result is that Meridian Drive would terminate to the north of the UW Clinic site, which is the one that I'm circling right now. Whether it would terminate in where that cul-de-sac is shown or short of that is yet to be determined, depending on how the land between UW Health and FedEx actually develops. So where you see this end is where you see it end. This is the same endpoint right there. And this is the vacated segments of Meridian Drive, subject to your recommendation and village board approval.
And currently we're on 5.9, which is the vacation, and the
That's
CSM is 5.10, which we haven't got to yet.
Yeah, and our recommendation is in the report here on the vacation. So the road wouldn't be vacated until the CSM is recorded. They're sort of joined at the hip.
Oh, any further questions or comments, or we have a recommendation by staff on the screen right now, if anybody is willing to make the motion.
Jim, I'll make the motion to recommend village board approval of the vacation of Meridian Drive.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second.
I think I heard Doug first. So motion by Brian, seconded by Doug. Any questions or comments? Guess I'm looking at Mark. Was that motion okay, or did you want it to read exactly what
If you wouldn't mind recommending that the vacation take effect in conjunction with the recording of the CSM, that would be cleaner.
Sure, I
accepting
would
it?
be happy to, Mark. Amend my motion, village board approval of the vacation Meridian Drive. And the associated map exhibit. And such vacation take effect in conjunction with the recording of the CSM.
Thank you, Brian. Doug, are you okay with that amendment?
Yes.
Thank you, Doug. Any further questions or comments? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 5.10. Discussion and recommendation on a CSM combining all of lots 29, 30, 31, 32, 37, and 38 in part of lots 29 or 28, 33, 39, and 40. North Town Corporate Park, that I will end there. The rest is denoted on the agenda. Any discussion or recommendation?
I've got a question, Jim.
Yes, please go ahead, Scott.
This would be for village staff and or the developer. The combined, lots or the new CSM, the land to the south, has there been any discussion or what is the insight as far as the marketability of that land to the south if this CSM were to happen?
I think we could probably maybe invite Alex to come up and maybe answer that question from the developer to the best of his ability, I guess. That's a challenging question.
Thank you, Alex. And when you could you please state your name and address for the record?
Alex Wise, 33 Harvard Drive, Madison. I work for the developer owner, and that is a tough question. I would say the marketability is similar to the marketability of the property being developed for FedEx. We think it's good. We're not currently talking to anybody for those lots, but we're in a strange time in the economy. There's not a whole lot of commercial development happening right now with the interest rate and construction costs. So I, for one, am happy that we own this land, and I'm optimistic about the future for it. So I don't have any specific development plans for it currently, but I think it's really good land, and we remain long on it. It's the best answer I have.
If I could quickly add to that, right now, it would remain zone B2 general business. It's not part of the rezoning area. And it's indicated in the comprehensive plan draft that you'll be considering tonight as appropriate for either commercial or industrial use. And with the expectation that if it goes industrial, it would be developed to commercial development standards like we've been talking about for all this area. And I would be pleasantly surprised if it develops and the lots 2, 3, 4, and 5 don't require further adjustment. They probably will. Go for it, Alex.
Maybe will, maybe will. We agree with you. We would hope that it would be higher end commercial. I mean, I think most of you here know we're primarily office developers at this point, office, medical, things of that nature. The FedEx development is out of our area of expertise. So I would feel it's more likely that we would attempt to develop those into more commercial, but like Mark said, the way the market is, we can't control it. So if a strong industrial type user comes along, we're gonna be back right here asking for the same type of rezoning. So.
Does that answer your question, Scott? Do you have anything else? So can I maybe ask a follow-up question, similar in nature? How do those lots compare to, say, the UW Health lot? Are they similar in size? If they happen to develop in that type of frame, we'd be looking at a building about that scale.
I think the simple answer to that is the size of the lots, it doesn't matter. We can change them to fit the demand, which we do in all of our developments. So is that a non-answer, or did that answer your question?
I would say that answers the question. if somebody would come in similar in scale to the UW Health, you would adjust the lines that make it
Absolutely.
happen.
Yes, correct.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Is there anybody willing to make a motion? Looks like based on what you have on screen, you're saying section 3.
Yeah, the idea would be that we'd ask you to recommend board approval, subject to the conditions you see in section 3 of that draft ordinance that we talked about a little bit earlier.
Yeah, just formulating my thoughts here. Thanks, Brian. Mark, can you repeat that again? I just want to make sure I understand the context.
We're recommending that the commission recommend board approval of the certified survey map, subject to the conditions that you see in section 3 of the draft ordinance that would approve both the rezoning and the CSM.
Okay. Yeah, Jim, I'll make a recommendation for approval of the CSM as presented by village staff, and especially the adoption of the stipulations outlined in section, did you say section 3?
Thank you, Scott. In section 3 of the draft ordinance. Yeah. So there is a motion on the floor by Scott. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Shannon, thank you. Seconded by Shannon. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Thank you. So item 5.11, public hearing on a petition for rezoning from C1 Conservancy District to the OR Office and Research District for the northern approximately 80 feet of parcel denoted on the agenda, located along Peterson Crossing approximately 1,500 feet north of Highway 19 in the Village of DeForest. Mark or Brandy? And I open the public hearing at 7:13. Anything under the public hearing, or do we just want to wait a minute and close it?
I would just see if there's anyone who wants to speak at the public hearing.
Anybody out in the audience? Looks like on the, anybody on Zoom? I just see 4 people on, is that it?
Let me find the rest of the Zoomers. We're starting to lose them.
Okay. So I will now close the public hearing at 7:14 and move on to 5.12. Discussion and recommendation on the petition for rezoning from C1 Conservancy District to the OR Office Research District for the northern approximately 80 feet of parcel denoted on the agenda, located along Peterson Crossing, approximately 1,500 feet north of Highway 19 in the Village of DeForest.
Jim, would you mind reading in 5.12 and 5.13 as well, which are buddies of this one?
Sure, and we will also open for discussion 5.13, the discussion and recommendation on the proposed transfer of the northern approximately 80 feet of a parcel denoted on the agenda.
Yeah, I misspoke. That one and then the next one after that, 14.
And we're taking 3 altogether and including 5.114, discussion and recommendation on a CSM adjusting the lines between lot 81 of the Fox Hill Estates replat and the outlot 8 of the Fox Hills Estates plat and the reconfiguration other lots in the plat located along Peterson Crossing, approximately 1,500 feet north of Highway 19 in the Village of DeForest.
Thanks.
then-
And you told your spouses not to wait up. So these agenda items cover something that's relatively simple, I think. When the Fox Hill Estates replat was approved for the Hooper development a couple of years ago now, it was approved with a lot 81. Lot 81 is the lot the area you see here in brown. Okay, and as you can tell, it's a pretty odd shaped lot, sort of a leftover. The reason it was created that way is that with the original Fox Hill Estates replat, now we're really losing them. With the original replat, we had an outlot within Fox Hill Estates that extended all the way to that south line of that brown lot. And so there was as you may remember, when the Hooper development came forward, there's a lot going on. I mean, a bunch of stuff going on. And this was a minor detail that we agreed with Hooper that should be resolved later on. It was originally part of this big outlot that's in green. I'm talking about the yellow colored area. The yellow colored area is really originally part of that outlot. It was formerly called Outlot 8. Because in the old version of the development before Hooper came on the scene, it was envisioned for stormwater management within that yellow area. The Hooper development didn't need it for stormwater management, but we just didn't have maybe the time or patience to address it at that point in time. So what the proposal is right now is to ask that you recommend that the board approve the rezoning of the yellow strip from its current C1 conservancy zoning to OR office research zoning, which would match the current zoning of the brown lot to the north, so that everything in brown and yellow would be zone office and research. We're also asking that you approve recommend that the board transfer this 80-foot wide strip that's in yellow from village ownership to Hooper's ownership, so that they can combine it by the certified survey map that's on here into a single lot under Hooper's ownership. And then of course, I just already mentioned the certified survey map that would need to be approved, which would reconfigure the outlot to include everything in green, which would include the wetland and a 75-foot wetland buffer around it, plus an existing stormwater basin to the south of the wetland area. What questions do you have? Happy to clarify anything as needed.
Any questions? I will ask one question. How does the Carpsey Environmental Corridor play into this? Has that been released yet?
This would be considered a minor change because we're not impacting the core components of the environmental corridor. In other words, we're not proposing to fill a wetland. We're not proposing to intrude upon a 75-foot wetland buffer. We're not we're not in a floodplain. So the minor amendment process for environmental corridors is simple and straightforward. Once the village board approves this certified survey map, which would redesignate everything in green as environmental corridor, we'd forward that on to Carpsey staff and they'd amend the corridor maps.
And I'll just state a comment. I personally, when I first envisioned this, I thought that part of the 75-foot would say beyond to the lot one, just to help with building setbacks, but I appreciate that the 75-foot stayed completely in the outlot. To me, that will be nice for trails and other recreation, so I appreciate that.
If we had the air photo up here, you'd also see that the line between outlot 1 and lot 1 is also sort of the tree line in this area too. So it'll be a nice demarcation between kind of a natural demarcation as well.
Thank you. Any questions or comments, or I guess we'd be going doing recommendations, probably starting with the 5.12.
And I've got that recommendation in blue on the screen.
Is there a motion by anybody?
Yeah, I'll make a motion for the rezoning of the C1 Conservancy District to the OR Office and Research, the approximate 80 feet with the PIN number ending in 00251, located across Peterson Crossing.
Could you add that that would be subject to the condition in the staff report?
Subject to the conditions outlined in the staff report.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Doug. Any further comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. So now I'd ask for item 5.13, which would be a recommendation on transferring the parcel, which I believe is now highlighted or Randy or whoever.
I'll keep going, Jim. Yeah. I'll make a motion for the transfer of the 80 feet of the parcel, PIN ending in 00251. As presented in the staff report with the conditions outlined.
Motion by Scott. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Brian. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. Item 5.14, which is recommendation on a CSM. And I believe that's now highlighted on the screen if anybody's willing to make that motion.
Sorry, my mic wasn't on. Adjusting the CSM line between lot 81 of Fox Hills Estate replat and out lot 8 of the Fox Hills Estate plat, subject to the conditions presented by staff in the packet.
Thank you. So there's a motion on the floor by Scott. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Shannon. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes 5-0.
Just a shout out to staff. That was a lot of work you guys put into this one. So well done. That was a lot of work. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll second that. Reading through it and then hearing Mark explain it made it much easier. So yeah, thank you.
Could you make that subject to conditions, please?
Yeah, there was a lot of work reading it, so much less writing it had to be like quadruple at least. So we have already addressed the 5.15, the public hearing earlier tonight. So we are now on 5.16, discussion and action on a resolution recommending updates to the Village of DeForest Comprehensive Plan and official maps. Mark, I'm assuming you want to open this?
I do. So you've seen this many times before. We included in the Planning and Zoning Commission packet a red line version of the comprehensive plan, vision and directions volume. The changes indicated there are the results of a few different sources. The main one being that between the last time we met and this meeting, we've had 2 discussions with the Village Board Committee of the Whole and gotten some good feedback from village board members on the plan and some of the things that they hope to see within the plan document. And so what we thought we'd do for this meeting is make sure it was clear to you what has changed from the version you saw in January. So that if you wanted to, you could just look to that if you were okay with the balance. One of the things that I was unable to show track changes on are map changes. And so I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of those before we move forward with them tonight. One, they're minor. One's to the set of changes is to the future land use map. We had identified a piece of property currently owned by the DOT, but being marketed for sale at the northwest corner of V and 51 for commercial only development in the current comprehensive plan and in the last version of this map you saw in January. We've had a lot of discussions about staff as to the viability of commercial development. We have actually some interest in what I'd call a hybrid of commercial and industrial use on this property. We're therefore recommending that this be designated for future commercial or industrial or mixed of the two use, and that's denoted by the red color. So that's directly north of the Quick Trip at V. The second notable change to this map from the last version you saw is that the last version had sites on the west corners of River Road at Highway 19, both the northwest corner and the southwest corner, designated for a potential commercial residential mix. We've since been able to dig deeper into some of the deed restrictions and conservation easements that exist in that area. And we believe they're a fairly impenetrable wall in that northwest and southwest corner. Therefore, we're, I guess, throwing up the white flag and indicating that those areas be appropriate for their current use, which is agriculture, shown as in light green. Those are the main changes. We have, we're in an internal struggle to get our environmental corridor boundaries straight. So there are some minor environmental corridor changes on this map compared to the previous one, but they're not noteworthy and not large. The other map that's changed since January that we couldn't really show you the changes on is the future transportation and community facilities map. And this one, like the other, like the future land use map, has not changed much at all. The most significant change based on a conversation, I'll say two changes based on conversations, is suggestion that Northtown Road, as it works its way through the FedEx Livesey area that we just talked about, and in the future crosses 19, that it may in fact follow the solid red line and connect to East Metro Drive, where you get to Camping World. Or in the alternative, now that we're showing on this map, it could follow the dash line, and that road could be the road or a road that would cross over or under the interstate to connect with Dantle Road that we've discussed in the past. So we felt leaving a couple options open might spur some creativity as that site actually develops and allow us to go in different directions without anyone suggesting we're in violation of the plan. The other change of note is west of the interstate, as we kind of think about that frontier more. Obviously we just talked about that land in Westport, but there's additional land planned for developments. We've had items on the agenda related to this up in the northern stretches here. But we haven't really suggested in the new comprehensive plan how the lands, I'll say between Windsor Road Extended and Daly Road might develop in the future to any great degree. We have it shown as urban reserve, which is kind of a placeholder category of future use, but not specific recommendations for that area. However, as we think about how roads might go in that area, one concept, and I'm just going to say it, Commissioner Simpson had a very sound suggestion that we might consider that where River Road, just before it crosses over the interstate, as that area develops in the future, might instead veer to the left and become a continued collector street in some manner. And this is conceptual, trying to work around wetlands and other things, that would link up with and become Hickory Lane. So that there would be a collector street extending from, well, as far south as River Road goes, and connecting into Hickory Lane, which then becomes County Highway I. So I thought that was a pretty good idea. And so that's reflected here on this draft map. And it may be paired then with an idea of reconstructing the Windsor Road overpass so that trucks don't keep slamming into it. And squaring it up to the interstate a little bit better might be part of that. So that's the second kind of bigger picture idea. And Jim, I didn't mean to throw you under the bus or whatever, but I wanted to give credit where credit was due there.
I appreciate that, and I do want to mention one thing that I think is a bit of an issue with that plan is just the angles involved with Windsor Road and River Road. So I personally would, for a collector road standpoint, it'd be probably nicer to extend River Road, but I think there's also another option where it might be Windsor Road that sweeps north, but that to me can be taken care of by the way you got it drawn.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. The way it's shown right now, it's not connecting at a right angle, which is obviously a no-no. But we're big picture planners and we can do that kind of stuff and let other people clean that up later. Sorry, I'm getting a little slappy.
And the other comment that I'd make too is up by Hickory Lane. I think those three little squares is a residential properties.
Yeah.
And I could say that more or less collector road connecting farther north, so those
Yeah,
residential would be more on, say, more of the residential left over a Hickory Lane rather than the collector.
right.
But I'm thinking that can play out in the wash whenever a developer comes.
And you see this unusually large parcel here. That's owned by a business, the genetic space business. I always blank on their name, but I think they're there for the long haul. And so I attempted maybe trying to think about perfecting the future too much of dodging that farm parcel.
Thank you, Mark. I don't mind some credit, but obviously it's all of our comments that get addressed, so.
I wanted to make sure you all were aware of what had changed because it's easy to miss some of that stuff. And so since we've shared the plan on Friday, we've also gotten some additional comments. One from a set of comments from Commissioner Street, other comments from staff as they've considered, the implications of this. We have a busy development plate. You're just seeing sort of the tip of the iceberg, and the rest of it, it's not going to sink any ships. It's good stuff. But as we kind of consider those things, there were some suggested changes that might be appropriate coming forward here tonight. So there is a request here to ask the commission to adopt this resolution 2023-902. That resolution would be your recommendation on the comprehensive plan to the village board. The resolution as it was in your packet basically said, we recommend the village board approve the comprehensive plan as it's attached as Exhibit A, which is that, big thick document with the red lines on it. What I did just this afternoon is suggested that there be an Exhibit B that would include some additional changes, and then we're going to work real hard if you adopt this resolution to get it all put together for the village board in a nice neat package for its packet tomorrow. So what is this Exhibit B? The first suggested change, and I can ricochet back and forth between the document and this as needed, but I'll try to avoid that if I can. We had some comments on housing, and actually Dawn shared one with me that was a good one too that we can add to this list, but I'll go through these first. One of the questions we had from Lisa was how do we, what is the definition of higher density development? And I think she was pointing to this particular policy in the housing chapter. What I tried to do with this suggested amendment through the underlined text is to point to the places in the plan where the plan does in fact define what higher density development is. It's, for example, it's described in figure 5.1. Different density ranges for different future land use categories. The second comment, again, from Lisa was, there were comments on the community survey. Dawn mentioned it a little bit earlier. They referred to housing prices. And the point was made, well, that survey was in 2020 and we've had price acceleration since then. We'll have price acceleration in the future. And we should at least make note of that. And so I suggested a footnote to the graph that showed preferences on different home prices to read. Results are based on respondent perceptions in fall 2020. Home prices have increased since then. We actually have a figure early in the report that is that 359,000 figure that she talked about earlier, and are likely to increase in the future. Just a sort of a disclaimer. The third comment, at least some of you on the commission are aware that we've been working with a industrial developer off of Dental Road to develop 50 acres for industrial transshipment type uses. We have urban service area amendment that's pending. We have intergovernmental discussions with Burke that are pending. But in any case, some of the planning here has suggested environmental corridor boundaries, and that there have been wetland delineations and requested back and forth to DNR. Long and the short of it is that we're just with this number 3 suggesting that that future land use map be further amended to represent the environmental corridors as you see here now. The area in question has been up here that is sort of a linkage between the big stormwater basin complex off of Pepsi Way and the Cherokee Marsh. You may have seen in the communications today that, or in your packet that we had in progress changes to maps 5.2, 5.3, 5.4. I couldn't get my mapper to do them because he was skiing the Berkey this weekend, but he got them done, and we have them in the packet as well. The changes were, oh boy, really minor. I'm trying to even pinpoint where they occurred. We had I'll give you an example of the scale. We had a pathway with the dashed line that is part of the plan, would be just north of Active Arts where the karate studio is. It was kind of going meandering through this commercial site. I said, Dan, let's follow the road with that path. That's the scale of the change to this map that we're talking about. You'll remember there's 2 similarly themed maps. One is to the Highway 1951 district plan. We're going to be talking about these maps a little bit more in a second, but you recall the dashed lines on the transportation map. There they are on this plan. You recall the discussion of the environmental corridor. I cleaned it up on this map too, or Dan did. And the final change that I will point out is that we added this or mixed or flex commercial residential to it was intended mainly for the 2 undeveloped lots that are east of Meritor Clinic. We have, as you recall, a concept plan for a mixed-use center on the undeveloped 20-some acres between the Park Apartments and Meritor. We've had interest since then for at least one of those sites to the north to also develop in a mixed-use way with commercial and residential development. This suggested change cracks the door open for that possibility that the mixed-use center may in fact be centered on where you see those 3 conceptual buildings, but it may be actually shifted a little bit further north. So this provides that again, foot in the door for some flexibility in that area. And then the final related change is to map 5.4. And that just identifies and adds labels to that effect on those sites. There were no other changes to 5.4. So again, I just wanted the resolution, once Brandy assembles it, if you approve it tonight, will include these revised versions of the maps 2, 3, and 4 in chapter 5. Sorry, I'm grinding the meeting to a halt here. It's not too much more. Don't worry about this. Getting back to another one of Lisa's comments, she pointed to a section in the housing chapter that says something to the effect is that if the village gets too far away from a 60% single family, 40% other mix, that on an annual basis, we'll just kind of keep tabs of that, and that the village might adjust its plan or policies if it kind of veers too far from that goal. She suggested, well, that shouldn't just be quote unquote village or whoever that ends up being, but it should be, involve more people. So that section in the housing chapter actually points to the implementation chapter. And that implementation chapter says, with the amendments that are being proposed, that we are going to have an annual review of the comprehensive plan. And so I copied that section here, the text that's not underlined, which says the village board and or plan commission intend to devote at least one meeting annually to refresh itself on the plan, review prior decisions and actions against the plan, and consider priority implementation efforts for the following year. I suggest adding each such annual review will include a public comment opportunity so that people can weigh in. And again, that links back to the 60-40 thing in the housing chapter. Happy to go to any of these chapters if you need more detail, but that was another response. And then the final suggested change that I'll offer, and then I'll mention that we have had discussions on one more, but I'll leave that for last, is to the future land use map and this 1951 corridor plan map. And so this affects the lands that are directly west of Settlers Bank on Highway 19 and extending west to what used to be Associated Bank off of Blanchard's Crossing. And the current draft of the plan suggests commercial only use for those properties. Alex, he can say more if he wants to, but he's got some exciting prospects that have a commercial and perhaps a production component to them, where they're making stuff and selling stuff on site. And these would seem to be reasonable locations for that type of use, in our opinion. And so one suggestion is that these sites that you see circled neatly on map 5.1 and a little less or a little more conceptually on map 5.3 would be redesignated to this mix / flex commercial or industrial.
Yeah, the only
Can I add
thing,
anything to that?
just the potential users is sort of a hybridized thing. So it kind of runs the in-between of that point. So it actually could be a nice transition from the industrial to a more commercial.
And of course, we have along Blanchard's Crossing, up to a mile to the north, a lot of industrial users. So this is, I think, a reasonable zone to flex to that area. The final amendment that we don't have here, but we've been in discussion up to like about an hour and a half before the meeting, relates to the Yahara Grove site. Remember that site along River Road across from Sunnybrook and Woods Glen? Yeah, it was called Yahara Grove. It was called 10 Oaks. It was called Three Bridges. It's about 50 acres. Very good. The long and the short of it is there is possibly going to be a revived proposal in that area that is possibly going to be similar to what you've seen before in concept, and we had a number of meetings on in the Planning and Zoning Commission. It just, the concept might be changing. We've learned this afternoon from what was approved. It's not clear whether the concept they're considering is consistent with the current comprehensive plan or not. We advise them to get internal agreement on what the concept is and bring it forward. And it can be considered at a future date. That future date could be as soon as the village board public hearing a week from tonight or after. So we're not suggesting any changes to the comprehensive plan to address anything on this site because we don't precisely know what is being proposed for the site at this time. But I wanted to, tip you off that there might be something coming in the subsequent months. And, the plan is a living, breathing document. And it's, as we talked about, it's going to be subject to review. It can be amended really at any time. We don't have a limitation on how the plan can be amended. As we did with the Bear Tree Farms and Homestead Edition proposals recently, it can be amended at the same meeting as a rezoning occurs for that same site. So it doesn't necessarily have to be, you have to go to extra meetings to make that happen. So we wanted to let you know that that may be coming, and it's possible that at the village board public hearing, the representatives from the development ownership team might be presenting another concept for that site. So thank you for bearing with me, but this is kind of what happens at the end of a big process like this. There are often, I wouldn't call them last minute requests, but things that do come forward as a result of or around the public hearing that we wanted to make the commission aware of. Oh, one other thing that Dawn mentioned to me that I wanted to touch on, and I will have to go to the plan for this. I'm sorry. So she did read the plan a few times. She noticed that we've updated some of the statistics here. This graph was originally produced a couple years ago. We've got new data. You see this median household income. It was 81,000 and some change in 2018. It's now 88 and some change. And then, I guess my navigational skills here. And then if we go to the housing chapter, we have a statistic here that I'll get to in a second. Oh, that says, state of Wisconsin classifies workforce housing as housing affordable to households earning 60% of the area median family income, or 61.7. That 61.7 was based on the 2018 number. So I'm just we can add it to the resolution, or with your blessing, I'll just make sure that 61.7 gets increased to 60% of whatever that first number was in the previous chapter when it goes to village board.
So I guess I would ask you, Mark, and I think you're getting along those lines, say like, I would consider that sort of a minor change. And I'm wondering how we progress, say, from the Planning and Zoning Commission recommendation into, I think it's a recommendation, right?
Yeah.
And how do we progress going into the village board adoption, I'm assuming? I'm guessing that there'll be changes between now and then, and does things ever have to come back here?
No, they don't. So you're a recommending body. The village board can decide to accept your recommendation in full, reject your recommendation, or take 99% of it and change a couple things before the board adopts the plan.
And if you don't mind, could you tell us the schedule moving forward? Because I know, like you said, we're close to the end, but that can obviously change based on what happens at the board too.
We're required by statute to have one public hearing. We have a bonus public hearing, this one tonight, and a second public hearing before the village board next week, Tuesday. And after that hearing, there will be an item on the agenda, an ordinance that will allow the village board to approve the new comprehensive plan if it chooses. And that would be essentially it. We've got the redevelopment plan that's sort of looming behind it. It's behind it because the redevelopment plan has to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. We need a new comprehensive plan for the new redevelopment plan to be consistent with the new comprehensive plan. Did I say that right? Thanks, Alex. At least one wonky guy agrees with me.
Do you anticipate changes between now and the village board that you'd recommend past what we'd be recommending tonight?
No, the resolution gives me the authority to clean up typos. So if I see I said TOO and it should have been TO, I'm authorized to clean that stuff up, but nothing beyond that. Now, if someone comes forward with an idea to change the plan from what you recommend tonight, I would do the same thing that I did with you guys to say, hey, we've gotten 3 or 4 other comments, village board, beyond what the P and Z recommended. What do you want to do with those? But I wouldn't just fold them in on my own.
Thank you. And I guess, sorry, I am elaborating when I probably shouldn't right now, but my concern is I think we might get a more public comment at the village board that could be addressed before or after in what you're showing here. I also know you mentioned it at our last board meeting, how there's differences of opinions based on the housing chapter. So I suspect that will be a conversation, but I mainly mention that here so everybody is aware that there's a decent potential that there'll be changes after our recommendation. At least that's my opinion.
Okay.
But again, like other people said, I think it's a well-written plan, so. Sorry to break tradition and talk, but I would open it up for comments and questions for Mark or anybody. Brian?
My voice travels. I really don't need that thing anyway. I guess in a way, I agree with Jim. It'd be nice that once we get through this and we get the village board, public hearing, more comments, it just seems like we're going back and forth with all this little stuff. It'd be nice to have a clean copy that we could just recommend a board approval and go to the board, and we don't have a public hearing. We've already had the public hearing. I realize it puts it off a little bit longer. I just feel like it'd be a nice, clean copy and done instead of just this little bits and pieces. Cause I don't even know how we're going to approve the recommendation of, you got the exhibit B, and then there's the other thing of 10 Oaks that we would have to add.
Yeah, I don't know if, I wanted to give you a heads up. I don't know that that's going to precipitate a comprehensive plan amendment or not.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's going to come before the village board on the 7th or not. I just didn't want that to sneak up on anyone here.
I mean, in my opinion, I'd like to see, to have a clean copy instead of the P stuff that we approve. I don't have a problem. Again, my hat's off to you and staff. Gargantuan effort over the last few years to put this together. I applaud everybody on the public participation on this. Fantastic. I think this is a really good roadmap for us to use, not only for the plan commission, but for the village board. So again, my hat's off to you on that. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Scott?
Based on what Jim and Brian said, Mark, Is there a concern about coming back and having a clean copy or?
No, we'll do what you want. You know, we'll have the we had the hearing tonight. There won't be another public hearing at the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. There'll be a hearing next week, Tuesday at Village Board. The Village Board can discuss the plan, but if you did not make a recommendation tonight, it could not act on the plan. So that would be kicked to the P and Z meeting on conceivably the 13th, but more likely the 28th. I won't be here on the 13th. Then it would be if you made a recommendation at that point in time, it would go to the Village Board at a meeting in April for approval. And then that trickles back to the redevelopment plan, as well. So the redevelopment plan
Would there be additional statutory requirements after amendments are made for public hearings?
No, the expectation is you have a public hearing, you get public comment at the public hearing, you can amend the plan in accordance with that comment. Now, if the Village Board decides to go, change the plan in a major way, I suppose one could argue that, the plan that was heard, it was not anything resembling the plan that's adopted, and then you might run into that situation, but if the board were to change a priority of a initiative or remove an initiative or change one, and I think we're really dialed into one, at the Village Board level at least, that would precipitate the need for another hearing.
One thing that I'll mention, and Mark, you can elaborate or maybe even take this conversation away from me, as far as the history of the amendment process, that when we originally created the comprehensive plan, we put in that annual thing, and mainly at that time was we didn't want, say, developers or really whoever to keep coming back every time they got denied to come back. So that's why it was put in as only a annual review. And my understanding, and please correct me, that with the revision, we're really not putting that limitation on anymore. Somebody could offer it, and like you said, have a comprehensive plan review at the same meeting as a rezoning or whatever.
That's correct, Jim.
And I'm mentioning that with respect to, say, the 10 Oaks property or whatever, the Yahara Grove, that could come in a month, that could come in a year from now. And I would also state that that could be the same, say, with the housing policy. Anybody could recommend or go forward with a comprehensive plan a month from now or 6 months from now. And we're always open for changes to a comprehensive plan if, I guess, the planning commission and the board want that.
Correct.
I don't know if that helps or if that clouds it, but I think it's maybe just getting back to the point that it's always a living document.
Yeah, I think there might be some sense of finality and urgency among some people that we don't get it right now, we're never going to get it right. And I don't think that's warranted to be concerned about that.
Mark,
have an
maybe
annual review.
you could speak to this. There's the different, I'll say levels, what, I don't know the terms. There's is it an update versus an amendment or?
That's right. So the statute says that we're required to update the plan at least once every 10 years. And an update, it's not defined by statute, but it's basically a cover to cover review like we've been doing over the last 2.5 years. An amendment is more of a pinprick kind of thing. We want to change this policy or change the future land use map, on this 12 acres, but in no other part of the village. Those can happen frequently. If they happen too frequently, then I would argue you don't really have a plan. You just have a document that you just change all the time to suit wherever way the wind is blowing. But you can amend the plan fairly often, and we have amended the plan. The village amended the plan for the Homestead Edition 2 summers ago. Amended the plan for Bear Tree Farms West last year. So there have been plan amendments that have, been relatively low key. And there can be plan amendments that happen on a regular cycle, like we've been talking about. Jim's right. If there's a developer suggested amendment, that can happen at any time. If there's a board suggested amendment, that can happen at any time, or P and Z. But we also wrote into the draft plan that there will be an annual review of the plan, either here or at the village board or both, to consider amendments, but also just to kind of say, how are we doing and what do we want to prioritize, for the next year, and how might that fit into budgets and things like that.
Which I think is really good practice, even if it doesn't result in amendments. It
Right.
just, especially considering that we're working through potentially having a strategic plan for the village as well in terms of implementing this type of stuff, so.
And we always have new commissioners, as you know, we always have new board members, and, my opinion is that review would probably be best for that purpose and for thinking about next year's budget if it happened, late spring, early summer. Each year.
So I guess we're looking for a motion or maybe a lack of a motion, and I wonder if we want to discuss what those two options might entail.
Yeah,
I
the
think
first
if there's
option, the first option would be to approve the revised resolution 2023-902, which would make your recommendation on the comprehensive plan, including the 6, I think, amendments that I went through here tonight in Exhibit B. The second option would be to postpone action.
And for a point of clarification, the postpone action would mean that we would have to take it up after public hearing would happen at the village board. So that could
Yeah.
potentially be included in a revision. Or
Yeah, the resolution could change between now and then.
Would this still go before the village board without a recommendation?
We would have the public hearing, which has been posted and scheduled next week. The village board could have a discussion item on the agenda next week. The village board could not take action until the plan commission offered a recommendation.
So by not making a recommendation tonight, it would pretty much require something to come back to the planning commission before going to the board after the public hearing.
Correct.
If we would make the recommendation, it could potentially be acted on at the village board. But the village board could also send it back to us if they so chose.
Yeah, so you're right. So let's just play that out. If you adopted the resolution tonight with these amendments, the village board would have a number of different options after the public hearing. It could adopt the plan by ordinance in exactly the manner that you've recommended it. It could adopt the plan with further amendments. It could reject the plan. It could refer the plan back to Planning and Zoning Commission to deal with topical areas, especially if they were, more complicated or required some, thoughtful writing rather than working out specifics on the floor of the board. So there would be a number of options that the board would have. So, you could do it that way, and then that sets the possibility for board action on the 7th and sets the possibility that you won't have to talk about it again next month.
Anybody willing to make a motion? I guess there'd either be a motion with the resolution or a motion to the table. So we're probably looking for either one of those.
As a table or is it postponed?
I think. yeah,
Postpone.
postpone.
Jim, I'm going to make a motion to postpone action on resolution 2023-902.
Motion by Scott. Is there a second?
Yeah, I'll second that motion.
Is there further discussion? I guess I would ask for a roll call. Roll call vote, I should say.
Yay or nay? Oh.
Yay.
Sorry, I have to talk into the microphone. I forgot. Doug, yay or nay?
Yay.
Shannon, yay or nay?
Okay.
Scott, yay or nay?
Yay.
Brian, yay or nay?
Yay.
And Jim, yay or nay?
Nay.
Nay? Okay, I need to clarify, there was 4 yays and 1 nay.
I think that's what I heard. The only one I didn't hear clearly was Doug. Would you agree that you were in a yay positive? Thank you. So motion to postpone passes.
You said nay?
I said nay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. So 4-1. The yays have the motion, which is to postpone action to the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting.
To the next.
I guess we
But-
didn't state that. Yeah,
We'll,
sorry.
we'll schedule it in a way that makes the most sense.
To a future meeting.
We'll be bringing, when this goes to the village board as far as the postponement, we'll have a discussion as to why the plan commission decided to postpone and the reason behind it, correct?
Yeah, I understand it's to hear the public hearing, at the board level and any additional comments that might, or any changes that might come out of that hearing.
Perfect. All right, thanks, Mark.
Thank you. So I believe that takes care of item 516.
It does.
6 is presentation and discussion. I do not know of any. Item 7.1, chair discussion. Your chair's report. Thank you all for coming. Village Board, there is a number of things. I'll run through the items real quick without much discussion, and please stop me if you want any further elaboration. But the DeForest Police has started a foundation. Or I guess I shouldn't say the DeForest Police. There is a foundation that is helping fund the police department and the LLC. Fox Hill Trail that was discussed. Fox Hill is by just north of Hooper. The Taylor Conservancy Report, which has been brought up, I'll say with the conversation about the disc golf, was discussed. And I think more or less how it is going to apply to the park and open space plan that will be revised, I believe, next year. There was a couple different annexations brought forward by the Evans family. They awarded a lot of street projects and also talked about the strategic plan and then awarded that to a consultant. I guess I asked Alex or whoever knows a plan better than I know they're going to reach out to village board members. Are they also reaching out for input from the Planning and Zoning Commission members?
I would imagine so. I think it's going to be pretty comprehensive in scope across staff and across elected officials.
Thank you. So can you please, what is the company or the name? So if you guys get an email that,
Yeah.
I guess just be aware if somebody mentions strategic plan.
I think the company is Allison Brunette Consulting.
Yeah, but I imagine that Bill Chang will send something out prior to you receiving anything from the consultant.
There is a contract for the cell tower rental. There was the Bear Tree zoning change that we talked about tonight. That was the Dickman's property, or will in the future be the Dickman's property. Fireworks ordinance, and I was not part of that discussion, so I don't know what that was about. And vacating the alley was discussed, the alley that's the Holmes Center that we talked about tonight. And as you all are now aware, the Bucky's was discussed at the COW meeting. Comprehensive plan, and against President Joe Biden's visit, that was a positive thing for DeForest, and report is that the police department did a real good job and everybody else involved. Disc golf course in Western Green was a controversial thing, or brought a lot of public input. And again, I wasn't there to hear this, but the UW-Madison capstone project was discussed, and that was, I forget that individual, but she's looking throughout the village for, was it special places or whatever the term is?
Yeah, so kind of in conjunction with some of the redevelopment planning work that we've been doing. She's in the landscape architecture program, Alexis Poss, and she's basically putting together some design documents to sort of supplement.
Thank you. So a lot of things being discussed, as there was a lot of things here tonight. So I think this is gonna, I'll say be standard, positive or negative. I don't know, but it's good. Active, yes. That's all I had. 7.2, you wanna, should I just rattle off like tonight, 7.2, 7.3, and 7.4? Do you wanna take those all together, Brandy?
I have nothing.
Okay. Development process enforcement suggestions, 7.5. Seeing none, I will move on to 7.6, next meeting date. Randy, anything with that?
Yeah, I had mentioned earlier in the meeting, and we had talked about it at the last meeting about having a special meeting on March 13th. So that is still planned, scheduled for that. That will be a Zoom meeting only. We don't have any rooms available to meet in person for that meeting. So, and then we're still have on the docket the regular meeting on March 28th. And that is it.
Okay, thank you. I will mention that I have a work conflict on the 13th, so I'm looking at Brian, I think would be the next commissioner to lead. But we'll deal with that.
Okay,
The commission will have to make a motion to appoint whoever they would like, Brian Taylor, to be the chair. Brian Taylor.
Anything else about agenda topics, or I guess we still have the March 28th meeting as far as you know? Okay. And number 8, adjournment.
motion to adjourn.
Motion by Brian. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Scott. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes at 8:14. Thank you all for a nice and productive meeting.